Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome to Stranger Days for the 20th of June, 2019. This particular podcast is one that you've heard me do before, but this time it's premium. It's edgy. It's raw, uncut. There's a circumcision joke I want to make there, but I feel it's a little bit too early in the game to talk about uncut dicks. However, in this particular podcast, my whole goal here and what I want to talk to you about, what I want to convey, what I want to do is be a little bit more out there, right? And I don't feel I can do that in traditional YouTube. I used to be able to. I used to actually 100% be able to kind of express myself and my opinions and my thoughts and my feelings and say whatever the fuck I wanted and not give a shit. I miss those days. And I kind of feel like I have to do it a little bit behind the scenes in order to be able to accomplish the goals that I want. It's weird. It's crazy. It's YouTube 2019. And the reason why this is a thing is because YouTube can, and this is absolutely true, the algorithm can determine when I swear, who I swear at, the general inflection of the cursing that I'm doing, and it all computes it together, like a fucking graphing calculator to determine whether or not I can make money. It also looks at the type of content that I cover. If I cover crazier stories, which is what I'm generally drawn to because I'm a bit of a weird fucker, then it would be, they don't let me monetize it. And there's been some debate. I'm going to try to find out more when I go to VidCon about whether or not that actually has an impact on the spreadability of your videos. Some people believe that that's the case, that their videos who get demonetized or have limited ads do not see the amount of exposure simply because YouTube wants to promote videos that can run advertisements. We're in a very weird place. So I figured, why not put it behind a relative paywall? Not much. $5 a month gets you a bunch of podcasts covering the latest, greatest, craziest shit. The stuff that I'd like to cover that YouTube wouldn't let me. And also the goal here is to build up a community. You guys can submit stories you want me to talk about. We can talk about certain things. We can have a good time. I will be introducing the voicemail line. And then as time goes on, potential live streams with call-ins via Discord or Skype or actual phone numbers and things like that. Because I do want to rebuild. I do. The last couple of years have not been my favorite. Mostly because of the restrictions of YouTube. And then everything I was trying to learn to stay afloat. And I believe in that desire for staying afloat. What I fucked up on the most is not paying as close attention to the requests and in some cases demands of the audience. And I might have taken it for granted. That's a human error. It's one that I want to find a way to move away from, to go back to something that's a lot better. And I think something like this, that is not trying to reach the biggest audience that it can, that is cultivating a group of people who want to hear some weird, fucked up news and have a good time doing it. That's what we're going to do here. So this is Stranger Days. And if you're looking at the pink IPA bottles on the screen, don't worry, we're going to get to it. But first things first, let's talk about the first story of the day, coming out of probably the greatest name for a city in the United States. And that, of course, is Hell, Michigan, where a YouTuber buys it, renames it Gay Hell in defiance of El Presidente Trump. Now you can like Trump, you can not like Trump, but you still have to laugh at this particular protest, at this particular prank. Now this guy, as we can see here, bought Hell, Michigan, named it Gay Hell for 2 weeks as a way to effectively fuck with Trump. Even though Trump ultimately isn't going to see it, the idea here is, hey, he wants to fuck with the MAGAPeds that live in the mitten of the United States. Now, it says here that YouTuber Elijah Daniel, who just purchased an entire town in Michigan to stick it to U.S. President Donald Trump. Hell, Michigan, which is a storied town founded in 1841, known for its blunt, straightforward name, is now known as Gay Hell, Michigan, thanks to Daniel. The 25-year-old announced on Tuesday that he'd officially purchased the entire town for 2 weeks in an act of protest against President Trump, who recently rejected U.S. Embassy requests to fly the rainbow flag during Pride Month in June, which, I mean, like, who gives a fuck, man? I don't care anymore about that. Like, I think back in the day, like when I was like a lot younger, I might have given more of a shit about this. But at the same time, it's like, it doesn't promote hatred. You know, like some asshole not too far away from where I live, like hung up a Confederate flag on an actual city telephone pole. Like, that's a dick move because it's not his property. Now, yeah, I don't give a shit if it's on his property. I can look at it and go, oh, that's the asshole I'm going to avoid. I'm not going to go there for fucking Halloween. But at the same time, he can do what he wants. Anyway, so he says here, ahead of Pride Month, Trump's administration put a ban on the embassies flying pride flags. So as of today, I am now the owner of Hell, Michigan. I bought the whole town, and my first act as owner is I've renamed the town to Gay Hell, Michigan. Only flags allowed to fly there are pride. Now, this is the tweet he put out there, and this isn't the first time he's done this. He bought the town before, or he rented a part of the town before, because the town itself is for sale. This is a fun fact. This is true. Hale, Michigan is currently for sale for $900,000. You can buy the whole damn town. There are people who live there. There's about 75 of them. And I have thought about running a crowdfunding campaign to raise 900 grand to purchase Hell, Michigan. And I wouldn't touch a goddamn thing, and I wouldn't do anything to that town other than start a radio station there, just so I can say, coming to you straight out of hell, and have it be literal instead of, you know, something that shock jock radio DJs say, because that's just what they do. Anyway, moving on. This story, this is true. Hong Kong porn sites shut down in support of protesters. You know, a lot of people out there like to criticize the porn industry. You know, they're insensitive. They don't care. They destroy socks. Flushable wipes are kept in business predominantly because of them. Victoria's Secret perfume, #1 perfume of porn. I have no idea if that's true, but every time I go to a strip club, it's what I smell constantly. I can't walk into a Victoria's Secrets without popping boners. Anyway, kidding on that one. But no, porn sites are usually some pretty progressive things, and they will always, no, not always, but they find a way to sometimes do some good shit, at least to draw attention to something, because, well, quite frankly, a lot of us watch pornography. And if we don't have access to that pornography, we're not very happy. Am I wrong? I'm not wrong, am I? Anyway, 2 prominent adult sites shut down temporarily last week, displaying messages of support and encouragement for site visitors to join Hong Kong protests against a proposed extradition bill. In the days leading up to the landmark protests on June 9th, popular pornographic video sharing site This AV shut up shop, displaying a message on their homepage that encouraged users to attend the life or death protests instead of jerking off at home. Now, that is a very blunt way of approaching it. That's a very, very direct way of approaching it, saying here, come on, guys, there's life or death protests out there. You can beat off later, or beat off first and then go, because you never want to leave the house with a loaded gun, especially when you're going to a life or death protest. Am I right? It's like the world's craziest, worst date. But I mean, I'm not against this. In fact, I'm pretty for this. I'm pretty sure if Pornhub decided it wanted to jump in on some of this activist action, they could get some serious results. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you looking for your interracial trans species gilf porn? Not today. Get out there and vote. I mean, seriously, if they shut down porn sites on election day, we might actually see some better turnout. A lot more frustrated people, but they're going to get right down to the polls to vote, to go home, to crank one out. It's entirely a thing that could be done. Now, more than 1 million Hong Kong locals marched on June 9th in protest of an extradition bill that would allow suspects to be sent to mainland China for trial. Protesters believe that the bill would allow China to encroach on their rights. And of course, look, this article does not go into the overall process or the overall political narrative or the political situation involving Hong Kong and mainland China. It is a very, very, very complicated political issue, and one that I am in no way equipped or educated enough to discuss outside of, hey, did you know some porn sites shut down to block this particular bill? That's my knowledge on the subject, but it is something worth looking into. Now, says here, we will not go into the street because we have our hope or we think more people will make our actions succeed. Now we know we need to do it no matter what. We shall succeed or not. Even a pig will scream before it is killed. Should we be killed but remain silent? And this is some bombastic language, but it makes a lot of sense. China is oppressive. China is a regime led by a person at this point because he got voted in for president for life and no one seemed to step up to say, Winnie the Pooh, calm the F down. It's kind of a dictatorship and they want Hong Kong. They want it and they're coming for it. And Hong Kong people, they don't want it. You know, like they don't want it at all. So it finishes up here by saying tensions escalated in the following days when Hong Kong police fired rubber bullet, water cannons and tear gas at a crowd of hundreds of thousands surrounding a government building. Amidst a larger protest on June 15th, Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lim suspended the bill, but stopped short of completely scrapping it. Protesters are calling for the complete removal of the bill and for Lim to step down from her position. So, you know, the porn blockade kind of worked. Enough people championing out on the street. They walked out there and they were like, we won't go until we can blow. No, wait, that's not the right. I was going to think of like, how do I make a chant for porn? You know, let us debate so we can go masturbate. That's not even very good either. I got to work on that one. This is more off the cuff kind of stuff. So I'm thinking on the feet, thinking on the fly, and quite frankly, I think I need some more goddamn caffeine. But I am very happy that these porn sites did that this bill was stopped short, even though it wasn't entirely scrapped. It should be scrapped, and Hong Kong should remain an independent nation. But when you're dealing with the China number one and the one China policy, yeah, in that region, you're all sorts of fucked all the time. And I don't think porn sites shutting down is going to last forever. It's going to require a lot of work from the people there. And considering that China is a major superpower and it has a lot of money and it flaunts it, Hong Kong's days are numbered as being an independent-ish nation. And that's surprising. That's actually really sad, right? That's really sad. Something I think a lot of people here in the States should go to protest, but the likelihood of us actually doing it, because it doesn't impact us directly, really fucking small. Now, this story here, came across this on Vice News of all places, right? Because Vice at this point fired so many people recently, and they're so upset because they lost that deal with HBO. They had like a huge, long 7-year deal with HBO or something, and HBO just canceled them. All the Vice series canceled. Those were good documentaries, but now they're looking for some cheap content to make. They're looking for a way in order to keep the money coming in. So they looked at YouTube. Do you know what they see? Reddit content. And this story comes from a Reddit thread. Man sues brewery after pink beer promotion made him feel forced to identify as a female. You know, it sounds hyperbolic. It sounds bombastic. It's entirely fucking true. Now, last March, Scottish beer maker Brewdog swapped the blue labels on his Punk IPA for pink ones and temporarily rebranded it as Pink IPA because of women's rights. The so-called Beer for Girls was released in advance of International Women's Day and served as Brewdog's attempt to appear interested in gender equality. Look, when something like this happens, when this company comes out and they get quote unquote woke, oftentimes we all know it's full of shit. We know that it's full of shit. We know that they're just doing it to score points and they're hoping that people come out and they buy this stuff and that they're touted around as fucking heroes and everyone hoists them up and they're like, cheer Brewdog, cheer Brewdog. Here's the thing though. None of these people, none of these woke individuals buy this shit because for one, they don't drink IPAs. They drink lattes or rosé or whatever the fuck it is. And they don't engage in this crap. But they sure as hell want to have a piece of the fucking action when it comes to the political capital that it comes from it. So, yeah, screw them. Anyway, I don't feel bad for Brewdog at all, simply because this was dumb and they ended up getting owned. Now, Pink IPA is Brewdog's clarion call to close the gender pay gap in the UK and around the world and to expose sexist marketing to women, particularly within the beer industry. It is our overt parody on the failed tone-deaf campaigns that some brands have attempted in order to attract women. Well, I'm just going to break it to you here, Brewdog. Sex fucking sells. Not full-on penetration, right? Not penis and vagina genital rubbing, because that's pornography and that's for masturbation. But when it comes selling the idea of sex is effectively the best part of it, right? So, yeah, you want to call it sexist. It's called money in the bank. And considering your whole, parody pushback failed as miserably as it did, it goes to show you that maybe you should take a lesson plan from the people that are clearly making more money than you. Now, this is the tweet that they put out there. And the thing to note here essentially is it says, we've created a beer for girls and it's pink because women only like pink and glitter, right? #sarcasm. So they knew what they were doing was meant to be quote unquote activism as well as still being a bit of a tongue in cheek joke. You figure that would go to some of the breweries. Well, nope. This brings us to Dr. Bauer. And for the first few weeks that the Pink IPA was available, customers who identify as female, which is Brewdog's words, could get the beer for 20% less than the cost of the Punk IPA, so the blue label IPA. The 27-year-old was apparently signed so into this promotion that he went to the Brewdog bar in Cardiff, Wales, and tried to order a $5 bottle. The bartender told Bauer that as a dude, he wasn't eligible for the 4-pound Pink IPA, but he could still get it for £5. Well, I mean, when they say, you don't identify as a female, you're a dude. That, of course, is when the conversation comes out of, well, what if I identify as an attack helicopter? But a female attack helicopter. This is where the conversation starts to break down because while Brewdog was trying to do it, perhaps with good intentions, they still horrifically fucked up by trying to put it out there like this, by still backing it up as just being more than a joke. It's just the stupidest thing. So, it's literally the same beer, just with a different label, which we know that when it comes to the pink tax, right? The elusive alleged pink tax for when you go to the store. Same product, but if it's dyed pink, it costs more apparently. Same concept here, but in reverse. Now, Bauer refused, saying, after a bit of back and forth with me protesting this, I felt forced to identify as female and was then able to get the drink for £4. He goes on to say, I complained to the company about this, and they said it wasn't discrimination because the price difference was part of a national campaign to raise awareness about the gender wage gap. Okay, so let's get this straight here. It's not discrimination because it was a campaign to raise awareness about the gender wage gap. Well, I have to say, for one, they tried and they failed because that is one of the worst possible things you could say. That's one of the worst, stupidest things you could ever say. Oh, it's not discrimination because this is the intent. Yeah, but if you're allowing someone to choose their gender identity, then can you really also choose the intent of which they take it? Oh, the answer to that is no, you cannot. Anyway, Bauer dragged this to small claims court, and District Judge Marsha Phillips pretty much agreed with his premise, saying, in my judgment, it is clear that in this case, the claimant has been directly discriminated against by the defendant because of his sex. The fact that by identifying as female, he was able to still purchase a pink IPA makes no difference. I accept that what Dr. Bauer says, namely that identifying as female was the only way he could purchase the pink IPA at a cost of £4. Now, there are going to be people out there that are going to sit there and say, well, does it really matter? Blah, blah, blah. It really kind of like the principle of the situation is the way that I view it. It's the principle of the situation. He was told that if he just lied and had to identify as a female, then he could get this particular beer for a little bit cheaper. And he felt that was discrimination, which it is. So we sued him and he won, which he should have. And he did. And it's funny to me. It really is downright goddamn hysterical that this is how it played out. Now, Phillips also said that Bauer had to feel humiliated and that it wasn't a pleasant experience for him. Now, that part, look, like I'm just going to call bullshit on that part. Like if I was going to go to a brewery and they were like, "Excuse me, sir, do you identify as a woman because you can't be here otherwise, or you can't get this," I'd be like, yeah, I'm straight up premenopausal. All right, I'm a slow burn hysterectomy happening over here right now. Give me a fucking brew. Like that whole sort of thing, like that, like that kind of shit. Like that's what you fuck it. Like, yeah, in this moment in time, I identify. Right. Like I listened to Spice Girls on the way over here and I'm ready to go home and watch a fucking Downton Abbey marathon. Clearly, we know where I'm at in regards to my gender identity. It's not humiliating to say that. I mean, it's just not humiliating. It's so, again, this was a principled argument and one most likely argued around semantics, and it worked. And I'm totally okay with that, but I still find it funny that the judge is all like, "Well, he must have felt humiliated." Really? Over effectively in US currency, $1.30 for 1 pound, you feel fucking humiliated? No, I think like the judge is right, but it's just one of the stupidest things. Now, because he was awarded 1,000 pounds over a 4-pound drink. Or $1,254, in which case he plans to donate to different charities, which is cool. So he's not in it for the money. He's in it for the point. And that is the kind of activism that I can ultimately get behind when you're in it for the point. You're in it for the principle. You're not in it to make money. Cause I don't like those kind of, those ADA trolls that just go out there and sue people. Your ramp is supposed to be 4 inches. This one here is only 3.5. I'm suing you. So then you build, so I get money and you get to make the ramp. It's stupid. But in this case, this guy, it's proven a point that trying to sell something to different people and then charge a different price based upon that person's fucking gender, not a good call. And at the end of the day, really only hurts people, because it does. It separates them instead of bringing them together. Speaking of separating people, this story. This is an interesting one because it brings up a lot of very interesting things. We're talking morality, integrity, and national law, not in the United States. Because in the United States, this man who would not get 21 months in prison for sharing a video of the Christchurch attacks. I'm serious. In America, he could share it, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, all that shit. In New Zealand, though, they made that crap straight out illegal. And this dumb shit motherfucker, because that's exactly what the fuck he is, shared it around and is now getting 21 months in prison. But even that is on the low end of what could potentially have been. Which, for you in the cheap seats, he could have gotten up to 14 fucking years for this. But instead, only 21 months. Now, a New Zealand man was sentenced to nearly 2 years in prison for sharing a video of the terrorist attack in March that left 51 people dead at 2 mosques in Christchurch. The man, Philip Arps, pled guilty in April to charges of distributing objectionable content. In addition to sharing the gunman's video online, he also sent a copy of it to be doctored to look like a first-person shooter video game, including featuring crosshairs and a body count. Now, the Christchurch event, the shooting, the massacre, was nothing less than an absolute tragedy. But damn, I think I saw one of those type of videos. I don't know if this guy did it, but I saw one of those. And that shit is terrible. But like, you kind of can't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it. I couldn't finish watching it. I got like, I'll just put it to you like this. I made it further into 2 Girls, 1 Cup than I did this video. It's so hard to watch. It's like insanely hard to watch. It's terrible to watch. But he sent a copy of it to be doctored to look like a first-person shooter video game. I mean, I think at this point we can kind of determine, we can ascertain that this gentleman is pretty much a white supremacist. Because, hey, pro tip, he totally fucking is. Anyway, Mr. Arps, 44, was convicted in 2016 on charges of offensive behavior and received a fine of $519 for leaving a box of pig's head outside the Al Noor Mosque in Christchurch. He filmed it and then put it online. And this, of course, is one of the mosques where the Christchurch shooting took place. So, this guy was pretty intimately familiar with the mosque. He clearly has xenophobic and anti-Muslim ideas, and he thought it would be a good time to take a box of pig's head, film himself going to this church, to this mosque, and leaving it outside for a laugh, for a chuckle, to make it unclean. Because he's not a low-life piece of shit. I'm sorry, he's kind of a piece of shit. Not even kind of. He's wholehearted. He's a piece of shit. I don't think anyone out there can really agree. You might laugh at the concept of going out there and leaving a box of pig's heads next to a mosque, but it's kind of in the abstract of the fact that, 50 people were gunned down in this particular situation. Down the road, not by him, obviously. It's kind of hard to find the humor in that, at least from my perspective. But then again, I'm in my 30s. I still laugh at terrible shit. But the length of which I laugh at stuff is a very, very, very shorter half-life. Anyway, now Mr. Williams told the court, and this is the lawyer, that the client had distributed the video to about 30 people. Mr. Arps told the police that he thought the Christchurch massacre was awesome. Of course he would. Of course he would. Guy left the box of fucking pig head. The judge responded that there was no comparison between Mr. Arps and Mr. Hess, who earlier on, that he had been likened to. That Mr. Arps had likened himself to Rudolf Hess, the Nazi deputy to Hitler, who tried to negotiate peace. Yeah, sure. Yeah, your Nazi officer tried to negotiate peace, but you laugh at the people being gunned down. That's peaceful. But the judge responded that there's no comparison and that Mr. Arps had been cruel and callous in sharing the video as the victims' families waited to hear if their relatives were alive. And that Mr. Arps' actions amounted to a hate crime. Now, here's where, I take this because, clearly the situation is terrible. I don't know. Can you constitute that as a hate crime? I know people out there are going to say absolutely 100%. Yes, you can. Totally a hate crime. But did he send it to the people, the families of the victims? I don't know that. If he didn't, and it was just shared amongst a social group of other like-minded white nationalist supremacist fuckheads, there's not really a hate crime there. Now, this is New Zealand, and this is their laws. Their objectionable content laws are different. It's generally created around child pornography to stop that. And the censor, the person who determined whether or not the content was considered objectionable, in this case, it absolutely is, in the context of being terrible, not that you should get years in prison for possessing it. He could have gone up to 14 years for this. Because that censor gets to determine that. The law will put it at the maximum of 14 years. It's really, really weird. But that is the world we live in. That is the world we live in. That is the situation we find ourselves in. It is unfortunate. It is terrible. It is tragic. But my living in America, at least in regards to this particular, douche nozzle, is that 2 years in prison almost for just possessing this shit. It seems harsh, but it does bring up a very interesting question, and one that I like to pose to you. In this country, in America, if you are in possession of, let's say, something like child pornography, it's considered a federal crime. You will go to jail. No questions asked, right? But what if you are in possession of videos of people being gunned down? Not accidental deaths, but intentional, premeditated homicides. Snuff films. Those are technically considered illegal. So possessing something like the Christchurch shooting video, I mean, does that constitute as being a snuff film? I would argue, yeah, because you literally watch people get gunned down by a weapon that is completely covered in memes. It's a weird fucking thing. It's a terrible fucking thing. Again, I couldn't make it very far into the video. I had to see it for myself. I couldn't do it. And it was just a tragic, terrible event. But I leave it to you in this particular case to provide your thoughts on what you think. Should owning something like this be considered a crime or a hate crime, considering its creation was completely rooted in a hate crime? It's very, we don't really ever have those discussions. So I think they're worthwhile to have. I don't have an answer for you, but all I can do is just pose a question. And I think that's going to actually wrap up today's show. Let's actually wrap it up. I think it's good stuff there. A couple good stories. And I appreciate everyone listening, and I appreciate you guys' comments and everything else. And I will talk to you guys later. If you want to jump in on the Discord action, there's a link in the video description. Thank you all very much for listening. Have yourself a great day. And I'll see you tomorrow on another episode of Stranger Days. Peace out.